Hello and welcome, Stand Up World, episode 39. I'm Mike Binder. Thank you for coming back, or coming in, or coming on. Still trying to figure out what the reality and the jargon of the geography in the digital world is. Thank you for uploading, downloading, sideloading, freeloading, whatever you're doing. I'm just really glad you're here. We have a really great episode. Patrick Arnold, producer extraordinaire, is with us today. Patrick, how are you?
Good, Mike. How about you?
I'm really good. I'm really excited. I am so excited about having Dave Smith as our guest. I find him to be one of the most exciting guys working in a world of just so that I'm so fascinated in any way. He's in a class by himself. He's, I want to say part Mort Saul, part young Johnny Carson. He's just got so much going on in terms of he's a political comic, but he's a comic. He's a host of he's one of the skanks. He's a skank, this guy, yeah, but from the Legion of Skanks with Louis J. Gomez and Big J. Okerson and actually Dan Soder, my buddy, who was one of the original guys who's kind of stepped aside. Bobby Kelly's with them now, I believe. Isn't that right?
I think that's the Bonfire. But
that's the Bonfire. Yeah, okay.
Louis Gomez, Big J, and Dave.
But Dave is like in the center of that. But he's got his own. He's got his own brilliant podcast called Part of the Problem, and which has skyrocketed recently to, like, I saw last week, he was like number 2 of all podcasts next to Rogan. And it makes sense because he's so intelligent. He's like Joe. He's so intelligent. He's well read. He's well thought. He's not afraid to have his opinions. He's just a very clever guy, and he's very, like I say, he's nestled into today's world. He doesn't feel like he's running a podcast so he can get a sitcom or get a talk show on network. He wants to be here. He wants to be in the underground. He wants to be in all these guys, the skanks and that group. They love the world. You can tell that they've created, and they're with Gas Digital, their whole platform. They really love what they've created, and they love their fans, and they've got passion at their back, which I really appreciate that, and that's, one of the reasons I started Stand Up World, and one of the reasons that I like to write about on Stand Up World is that world, and the passion and the how much these artists, men and women, I say guys, because when I say guys, I'm talking chicks. I'm talking people of color. Okay? Guys means everything to me. I'm not like saying guys like my friends Joe and Ken. I'm saying comics, artists. But the artists in this world are all just so into what they do, and Dave Smith really exemplifies that to me. And that's why I really was so happy when he said, yeah, I'll come on the pod and talk. And then, of course, the other thing is he had this brilliant conversation with Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr., who, as you know, I'm a big fan of, I'm a good friend of. And so this guy's a winner to me. So let's talk to him. Okay. What do you think? Patrick, you look hesitant.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to get right into it.
Oh, you're just a big Trump guy. That's what it is, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. I want him 2024,
There, he said it. Patrick's a Trump. Patrick wants Trump and Biden as Trump's VP.
That would be something.
All right, let's get it going. Dave Smith. Dave, how are you, man?
Doing good, man. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of yours. I really am. I have been for a while, and I just you're a rare bird, I have to say. I just
well, thank you.
And I know that your podcast has just been taking off lately, huh?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good few weeks. So yeah, got a lot of new listeners, and our numbers are the highest they've ever been. So it's cool. It's
yeah,
exciting.
I saw one day it was like #2 podcast or something in the world, and on the list. It's like, and what do you give that to? Where do you put that? Anything?
Well, I mean, the primary thing has been Joe Rogan. You know, I've done his show a whole lot of times, and he's got the biggest audience in the world. And so I did his show, and people like what I have to say there, and then they come over to mine. So that's been the biggest. But I do, you know, it's usually like, it's just a lot of things, kind of like it builds slowly. Like, that's at least for me. Like, there are guys who like take off, you know, and I've known some of these guys. I've good friends with people like I started in the clubs with like Michael Che, and he was just like this energy. Like, he was a unique talent. You could tell, like, even when he was first starting, and then he just like got things, and it like just took off from there, you know. But for me, it was always just kind of like a slow, steady thing. There was never like one thing where I just shot off. It was just always like, you do more shows, you know, your podcast audience grows, you do more big podcasts, you do more big clubs, and then little by little, it kind of just built. So that's it. But I'm very lucky. I love what I do. I love stand-up comedy, and I love talking shit about politics. And I get to do that for a living. So it's not bad.
That's great. That's great. They say, you know, if you got an attitude of gratitude, you can never go wrong. You know, I kind of meant, because to me, I don't know, you've been Legion of Skanks, and you've been around. It just seems so steady, but something just spiked, and you've been on Joe Rogan. So I actually think, and maybe it's just because I'm just so pro Bobby Kennedy, and you know, Bobby Kennedy and I have been friends for 40 years, you know, and I thought that interview you did with him was just fantastic, and so did he, by the way. He loved it, you know, and I just thought, maybe that might have been it's you guys seem like a good mix anyway, you know.
Yeah, no, that was one of my most downloaded episodes I've ever done, and it was a great conversation. He's an incredible guy.
Yeah.
He's brilliant. He's incredibly well read. I mean, the guy knows everything. And when he talks about something, it's not like, oh, this is kind of my opinion on this. Like, I read an article and now I have an opinion on this. He's like, I've read 25 books on this subject and I remember all of them. And so a very impressive guy. And I mean, you know, you've been friends with him for a long time. He's incredibly charismatic. It's unbelievable that with the deficit he has, which is with his neurological, vocal issue, that he can still be as successful as he is. Like, the guy is blowing up, changing the trajectory of the political culture in America off of his words, and he has trouble speaking. And like, what he has to say is so powerful that it can transcend that, and you forget about it. Like, as soon as you start having a conversation with it, like when you don't know, when you first talk to him, you notice it. And then by like 5 minutes in, you're just so like engaged in what he's saying that it's almost like it completely goes away. It's like that's how good he is. It's really, he's an impressive guy.
Oh yeah. And I am 10 or so years ago, 15 years maybe now, he would give talks about, you know, the rivers, and his voice was worse. And he would give these long speeches in people's living rooms, and you're right. After 10 minutes, people weren't even listening to the voice. They were listening to his passion and his sense of need to wake us all up. But I will say, you know, it's so funny because I do. I think he's incredibly brilliant, and I think he's kind of a person for the time, in the sense that he's right in the middle. He's in an oddly, he's an old time Democrat, but I also think the same thing about you, Dave. I've really been enjoying your podcast because, I never really knew what a libertarian was. I'm kind of an idiot in a sense of, I just, libertarian. Yeah, I guess they're like people that just don't want to make a choice. They don't want to pick a team. They're the guys that sit on the side and just tease everybody. But the truth is, I've kind of evolved into a libertarian myself in a weird way. I don't belong in either party. And I've really grown to the place where I really am very, very wary and cautious of both of the political parties and the political class in this country. And I think that you have a way of voicing that, and not only in your stand-up, which you do very well, but on your show, you really can look at that and dissect it in a way that it needs to be dissected. And RFK Jr. is that guy, even though he doesn't really want to admit that. He's so grown up being a Democrat and an old, he so wants to follow his family's footsteps. He doesn't really understand, what? You're not really a Democrat anymore. They left you. They left you,
long ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, look,
he's like the kid. He's like the little kid that gets left and the Indians pick him up on the wagon train. And he goes, well, I'm still with my people. No, you're not. You're not. We're your people now.
It's it's interesting. And look, of course, you understand. I mean, his father was Bobby Kennedy, so obviously, like, he's a Democrat in like the deepest sense of his identity. That's like who he is. His family is the most famous family of that party. But of course, we're not living in 1968 anymore. I mean, it's just the country is a radically different country. I think this is something particularly that people were thinking about a lot this week. We're recording this on September 12th. We just passed the 22nd year anniversary of 9/11. And just since then, just in the last 20 years, this is just a radically different country than it was when I was like a teenager in the 1990s. This isn't that world anymore. And young people today, I don't think even know any other world than this. I heard Glenn Greenwald was talking about this recently, but like when they first passed the Patriot Act, even in the wake of 9/11, with all of the hysteria that was going on, it was still controversial. Even enough people were still like, whoa, this seems really un-American to give the government this power of spying on its own people and to kind of suspend like all these like constitutionally protected rights. And in order to get it passed, they put a 6-year sunset in it. So it had to be renewed every 6 years. And what they said at the time was like, well, we'll have to come back to you and argue why this emergency still exists. You know what I mean? And it's just been renewed every single time. I think they changed the name of it and they call it the Freedom Act or something like that now. But
we're in a state of chronic emergency.
We've been an emergency nation for 20 years. And nobody in the news, nobody in the political class is even talking about radical Islamic terrorism anymore. That talking point is completely gone away. They're not even pretending that we have some real threat of another 9/11 style attack. Nobody's concerned about Al-Qaeda. Nobody's concerned about ISIS anymore. And yet all of those things are just part of America now. It doesn't matter that emergency went away. This is just part of America. And you look, we live in a country now with a Department of Homeland Security and an NSA that spies on all of the American citizens. And you know what I mean? Like, just every organization in DC is bigger and more powerful. And also there's all these new cultural dynamics where like there's these very bizarre like attacks on the concept of gender and the concept of like what everyone used to consider normalcy, and what a bigot is now someone. It used to be like if you felt like if you wanted to have a business and not allow blacks or Jews in your business, that used to be what it meant to be a bigot. Now it's like if I say, I think there's a difference between boys and girls, that's now considered being a bigot. We're in a very different landscape. And so what would make you a liberal Democrat in the 1960s doesn't necessarily make you the same thing. And although I don't think Bobby Kennedy is a pure 100% libertarian, and I'm sure there are issues that I would disagree with him on all of the most important issues, he is with the libertarians. On all of the most important issues, whether it's not fighting a war with Russia, a proxy war in Ukraine, or an actual hot war with Russia, whether it's not forcing people to get experimental medical vaccines or whatever they're calling them now, against lockdowns, against the CIA, against the Federal Reserve, again, like he's on all of the most important issues. And
even the border,
he's opposed to the regime
now.
Yeah. No, and he woke up about that. Look, he even when it comes to things like climate change, he's completely woken up to like what a scheme the whole thing is. And not that he doesn't believe in climate change or believe that we need to take care of the environment, but he recognizes that turning over all of the power to the World Economic Forum is not the answer. And he's promoting free markets as the solution, which I think is correct. So
I will tell you too also, and then we can move on from Bobby, but in terms of you saying well-read, I actually was with Patrick in Boston playing what was it, Nick's Comedy Club?
Yeah.
Nick's
Comedy Stop, right?
Nick's Comedy Stop,
Yeah.
And he, out of nowhere, he called me. I hadn't spoken to him in a few weeks, and he says, "Hey, I'm thinking about running for president." He's just calling a few of his friends. Said, I want to, and I said something like, "Well, if you are, you're going to have to deal with the Ukrainian war thing. You're not going. That's going to become the big issue." That's what I really felt at that time, and we hadn't really spoken about it, and it was so bizarre to me because he just was like, he rattled off about 3 books to me, and he was like, and this and that, and it really, and I didn't know that much about it. I just knew where I was. To me, the whole thing was like ridiculous that people were hanging out Ukrainian flags or putting them on their Instagram, and they had no idea what was really behind this whole thing. But Bobby was like so ahead of it, and he turned me on to a couple of really great books. And as it got into it, I think he has the best stance of anybody on it. He really understood it better than anyone that I knew. And that's almost like that on any issue. And I have lost a lot of good friends over the years, especially during the COVID thing, because just saying, read his book. And I had some really good friends just say, you're an idiot if you follow that guy,
Yeah. And you're like, oh, so why isn't Fauci suing him then? Like if his book is wrong and he's not backing up every claim that he's making against Anthony Fauci, if he's wrong, it would clearly be defamation. So why isn't Fauci suing him for $100 million? Is because everything in the book is right.
Well, in Fauci's defense, you don't have time to sue people when you're being feted at luncheons every single day and have parties at your name, and then people meet in big fields and throw shrines to you.
Yeah.
He's a religious figure now. He can't really be bothered with lawsuits.
But it really is amazing, man. It's amazing what we just lived through in the last few years, and it's hard to recognize the moment, like how crazy it is when you're in it. You know what I mean? And then it's almost like as people come out of it, I think they wake up a little bit more to it. And I'm not saying that I'm not equating these things, I'm not saying they're exactly the same. I'm just saying that when people talk about like the Nazis, and when people look at it, they go like, they have this like, how the hell did a whole society just go so crazy and agree to do these wild things that it would just seem so like horrific and all. But you think about like what the year 2020 was like and how everybody got into these like insane rituals and like deifying these people. Like, remember how they were with Cuomo? That he won like an Emmy, and everyone they were calling themselves what was it, Metro or Cuomo-sexuals or something like that, and they were all talking about how they just started like worshiping these people who were, by the way, it was like amazing to me because I'm a libertarian, so I was kind of like inoculated against all this stuff. Like I've always been against government authority, so it was very easy for me to oppose all the stuff in 2020. But I remember they're at this press conference, and this was early. This must have been in March. It was like right with the beginning of the lockdowns, and he just like very casually announced to a room full of reporters that they were suspending speedy trials because they just, couldn't get the trials moving, and we don't want to let people go, if they were guilty of this. So you're going to just have to wait for your trial because of COVID and the court system slowed down. And it was a room full of reporters. No one gave pushback, not one tough question. And then you turn on the news and they're just all worshiping him. And you're like, this governor just announced he's suspending every constitutionally protected right for the people who live in his. Oh, you guys can't go to church. You can't go to church this weekend. And you're like, I don't know about you, but like I've read the First Amendment. It's not that long, and it seems pretty clear that it protects people's right to go to church. And you're like, no, we're suspending that. You're not allowed out of your house.
It was amazing to me. Not only that, they were telling people they couldn't go to church, but they kept the liquor stores and the big box stores open. And they kept it was just an amazing time. And look at, nobody has admitted they were wrong. That's the other side of it. Nobody was like, geez, we were dead wrong on that. And look, I've been led down the path wrong before in my life. And I don't have a problem with it. I think it was dead wrong with the Iraq thing. I just let the press and the government and the Senate and the president, everybody just kind of make me think, okay, we've got to bring democracy to the Middle East, which was absolutely insane and stupid. Yeah. And I walked like a lemming with them, but this one, I just didn't, I was lucky enough to see coming. I just saw it coming, and it was sad because it's almost like you almost wish you were with the pack on something like this, because when you're not, you're just a pain in everyone's ass while it's happening. And then at the end of it, it's like you're waiting for everyone to wake up, and I just feel like the thing that I was kind of always thinking is that, was this good for comedy or bad for comedy? And obviously for a long time it was bad for comedy, and I'm thinking it's kind of getting good for comedy. But I think that a guy like you, and I see guys like Jim Brewer, and you have to get to a certain level. You can't be just a comedian and go to the Comedy Cellar or the Comedy Store and do really good political humor, because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But if you get to a certain level and you're bringing your own fans in, then they want to hear it.
Well, it's so if you're, if you ask, like, was it good for comedy or bad for comedy? I think objectively the answer is both, right? Like it's been both bad and good. The comedy industry, and I've been doing stand-up now for about 15 years, and it's been interesting to be in an industry as it went through a revolution. Like a complete revolution, nothing short of that. It is unbelievable how different. I mean, when I started stand-up comedy, most of the comedians I knew didn't have social media pages. MySpace was the big thing at the time, and a few people had them, but a lot of people just didn't. And it had nothing to do with the business. Dane Cook was like the guy who kind of like started using that stuff, but most of us didn't. And the game back then, and we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have social media, there was no such thing as a podcast, none of these things existed. And back then, the whole game was you were trying to get up at open mics to get a solid 6 minutes so you could audition for clubs. And then if you got into the clubs, you could maybe get a festival, or you could maybe get like a manager or an agent who then you could audition for TV shows, or you could submit writers packets, or you could, you try to get a late night. That was like a huge thing. If you could get on Conan or the Tonight Show or Letterman or something, that would be the really huge thing. all of this is completely different now. Look, dude, Tim Dillon never did a late night set. He's never done a television late night set, and he would have no interest in doing one. It would be a punishment to him.
Well, Rogan is the Carson. Rogan is the Carson.
So now that's it. So now that's the game now. Now it's like, oh, you don't have to do all of these steps to then get a show. You can start a show and then you try to build up your show. And ultimately now what you're trying to get is Rogan. And there's just like there's no comparing it. Like if I got on, you know, Conan's not on the air, I don't think anymore, but if I got on the Tonight Show or something like that, or you're like one of those guys, so you'll go do 6 minutes of stand-up comedy for the audience, who will then, like, let's say they love you. They think that's the funniest 6 minutes of stand-up I've ever seen, you know? Well, then tomorrow night, there's a new comic doing 6 minutes. And then the next night, there's a new one. And then by 2 months from now, there's been 20 new comics. And there's, you know, you just get lost like in the shuffle. If I go do Rogan, I speak to a substantially bigger audience for 3.5 hours. Like they come out of there knowing me, like intimately knowing who I am, what like the crazy stories, what my worldview is, different how I interact with my friend. Like you get a fan, like there's a new fan who loves you when you come off of that show. It's a totally different thing. It's a totally different world. And so the people who can adapt to this new landscape are thriving in like a crazy way. You know, you look at like the guy like my buddy Shane Gillis, who's one of the most incredible comedic talents like I've ever seen. And this guy got canceled from Saturday Night Live. And in the old world, that's it. He's done. Like his career will never, I mean, he's relegated to go back to the clubs and just be a random like club comedian and struggle to pay his bills. But now he just goes, oh, I'm just going to release my own sketches on YouTube. They're the funniest goddamn sketches. They're the best sketch comedy that's been done since the Chappelle Show was just done.
The stuff he puts up at Gillian Keeves on Gillian Keeves TV is I think you can go back to the Groove Tube.
Yeah.
I mean, how long?
It's some of the funniest, most creative, just hilarious stuff. And then he can just put his own specials out. Like he put the one out on YouTube that blew up, had like 12 million views or something like that.
Live in Austin, yeah.
Yeah. And look, he just did the Netflix special, but it's not even like, like Netflix almost had no choice. He just made himself so huge that it's like, if you guys want to be relevant, you better put Gillis on there, you know? So it's just like, so in that sense, it's like, it's such an amazing time for comedy. It's such an amazing time where like, you can't, you know, for someone like me, like the style of stand-up comedy that I do and what my politics are, I will not get any corporation to jump behind me. No television network is ever going to put me on. No, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's just not going to happen. But I could care less because I don't want to do that anyway. I don't want to go talk to suits at some network and go over this is literally what they do to stand-up comics on like late night shows. They go over each line of your joke.
Dave, I had years of doing it.
Yeah. And approve this word, take this word out. We have to find a new word for that. You know, I don't want to do any of that, man. That's the whole point of being a comedian is I don't want to do any of that. So I don't want to have a job. That's the point.
I would go on the Tonight Show and they would put me through the rigors, and I'd go there. I would be tense for a week, and then the day would come, and I'd go on there, and I'd go there, and then Johnny would talk too long to some old lady that he thought was funny from St. Louis, and they'd tell me, "I'll come back another night."
Yeah,
and it was I just go home in pain, you know.
It's wild, dude, and it's a crazy thing that they ever allowed it to happen because it's like. Dude, like these people, none of them ever understood stand-up comedy. And they don't even get like when you're like, oh, like to a comic, like, oh, just change this word is like, no, dude, like you don't get it. Like the whole joke relies on that word. Like things have to be, there's jokes where like, if you just say it a slightly different way, it doesn't work anymore, or at least takes a lot away from the joke. There's little things like the very precise wording is very important. And none of these people even get it. And so it's like, oh, I've watched them before. Dude, I've watched them what they've done to my friends, man, where they just like put these like it's like you watch someone who's like an excellent swimmer And then like this network comes along and they're like, we're just going to make a couple tweaks. We're going to have to handcuff you and tie this weight to your leg. But now go out here and swim. And you're watching them like struggle to get through it. And I know these people. I'm like, yo, this dude is a brilliant comedian. That bit was hilarious. And they just butchered it. It's like, as an artist, it's just like hurts you to see. It's like someone like painting over Picasso's painting. I was like, actually, I think it should go like this. Like, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. You're not a painter. Get the hell away from this guy and give him a canvas. And so now that comics can actually do that, it's like the most beautiful thing. So there's all that stuff that sucks. The woke thing, like totally destroyed a lot of comedians. It took, people who fell into that, like Stephen Colbert. You could look at him as just the god-awful hack that he is today, but that guy did the Colbert Report, which was the most brilliant show. It was so damn funny, man. The guy was so talented, but he just fell into this system and it sucked all of the creativity and funny out of him. But for the people who didn't fall into that and figured out how to use this new world that we live in now, it's like the most beautiful thing. So it's good and it's bad.
Well, it's funny because, listen, I think it's great for you to be so aware of that and of your world. I think that there's a lot of guys, and I understand totally why. Like, for instance, look at, I think Shane's fantastic. Shane wanted to do Netflix really bad. It's almost like a guy who loses his limb and doesn't know, still feels it. A lot of these people, they want what was there before them. They don't know that the world's changed, and even they know the world's changed, but they still feel their arm that's gone. And I actually helped him get that Netflix special, and spoke to Robbie Praw many times about it. And they were afraid to have him, and then they agreed to have him before he got as hot as he was. But the fact of the matter is, that's something Shane wanted. He didn't need it. And you're right. I think he would have been better off without it, putting up another Live in Austin. I think he would have been better staying on his own bushwhack trail. That's my thing. I think I'm so enamored by this new world of comedy that you guys are all creating. I'm just an old guy following you guys up the hill, And I do think that there's a lot of guys that are still, every now and then they panic and they want to chase back into an old world. But I believe, like, something that I was really, it was very interesting to me that you guys at Gas Digital did half-hour specials, which I thought was really smart, because I don't think who was it? Who was on? Erica Rhodes was on last week, and she was saying, well, it takes an hour to show the full arc of the piece. And I guess I get that. But to me, our specials came from back. They were still left from when you would do an hour network television special. And then when we went to cable, everyone did our cable specials. And then when it went to streaming, they had all the algorithms that showed that people weren't watching full hour specials, And I think, to me, a special should just be as long as it needs to be. If it's 27 minutes, if it's 47 minutes, it shouldn't be a length. It should be, every special. It's like, no one ever said, well, this album has to have 11 songs.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting in a way, right? Like it's because I get her point, but I also like, isn't it kind of weird and arbitrary? Like, why we're choosing 60 minutes, and this is based off an old TV format, because that's the way shows went. Shows went for a half hour or an hour or something. You couldn't have a show go an hour and 15 minutes. It just didn't work with the TV guide or whatever,
Right.
But why are we, if we're just putting these online, why can't it be 52 minutes or an hour and 7 minutes or whatever? It doesn't, like, we don't need these artificial things. And I'll be honest, I wanted to do an hour, originally. Like I had an hour ready to go, and I did like the arc of all of it, and I liked how it all flowed into each other. And then Louis J. Gomez, who runs Gas Digital, he was the one who came to me and was like, look, this is what I want to do. I want to do a series of half hours, and I want yours to be like the lead one for it. And he kind of just convinced me that you know, like basically like what you were saying, that like if you actually look at the analytics, people aren't watching the full hour, but they will watch a half hour. And that's just, I don't know, this, you kind of got to adjust to the time we're in. And it's like, yeah, people are watching like TikTok and reels and stuff. They're used to very short, quick things, and they're used to like having multiple tabs open and watching different things. And that's just the world we're in. So it was an interesting thing. I was like, all right, well, let's experiment with that. And I still have a lot more material ready to go. So I could still, I'm going to put out another special next year. So exactly. It's like, it just kind of makes it easier to like replenish. And then, you know, also there were other little factors like, you know, they paid for all the production and stuff. And there is something appealing about not burning your entire hour, because you know I'm still a professional, and I got people buying tickets to me next weekend, and it's like kind of like okay, I can't do all the special jokes anymore, but I at least have all this other stuff that I can do. So if you come see me, you're not like paying to see me like really start from scratch and like work it all out again. So that part's cool too. So it was an interesting experiment, you know, and the response to it's been unbelievable. So I'm very pleased with that.
I thought it was a great special. I think it's perfect. Like kind of shows you as a comedian version of you as what you do on your podcast. But I also really believe that, you know, when you watch a guy something like that, you do want to go, okay, now I want to see him live. And sometimes if it's too much, and we all do have this, all of us. I spent a long time going, you know, the kids today, their attention span. And then I realized as I'm telling my friend that I'm on my phone and my tab and talking to him on FaceTime, complaining about the kids today, you know, but we all have, our attention span has gone way, way down, and our ability to multitask has gone way up, and we can handle we don't need an hour special unless if a comedian says, hey, look I got to do an hour, but your special was 37 minutes actually, right?
Yeah,
you know,
something like that.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I really, you know, look, I think to me the real question is, are you going to be able to say anything you want to say? I really, that's my biggest thing. You know, I don't love the idea. I was on Jimmy Dore's podcast, which I really I'm a fan of Jimmy's, and I like what he does. And I brought up something. I was telling a story about the vaccine, and some friend of mine giving me a hard time about my taking the vaccine. And he go, but Mike, you're kidding. You know, we are very pro-vaccine. Yeah. And he was worried about his COVID. I get what he was doing. He didn't want to be demonetized or whatever. And I thought, you know, and Jimmy, he was kind of kidding, but not kidding. And I'm thinking, man, when is the point going to come where Google and YouTube and these big corporations are going to go, we got to take our hand off the buzzer. You know, we can't do this. You know, we've been busted. And that's the thing for me, for podcasters and comedians. I just think that it's not quite yet it's a great new world, but it's not a free world.
No, not yet. And there's, you know, it's a crazy thing that's happened. And like I talked about, you know, how there's a revolution in the comedy world, but on top of that, there's just been a revolution in the media world. And there is, look, like there's a reason why governments monopolize certain industries or certain sectors of society, right? Like it's not like a coincidence that like the government runs the post office, but the government doesn't run like shoemakers, right? Like they never had any interest in saying like the government's going to be the only ones who make shoes. You know, there's just no interest in that. And why do they run the post office? Well, because it's communication, okay? And the government wants to be in charge of how people communicate with each other. And if you think about that now, right now, today, the idea of saying the post office is communication is kind of goofy, but for a long time, that was seriously the way that people could communicate with each other. If you were living in a different state or something like that before the telephone, that was the way you would communicate with each other. Oh, and by the way, the government's also monopolized the telephone companies. Crazy coincidence, right? But they happen to get into that. Oh, and they also run the schools. Isn't that interesting? They also decided that they want to be in charge of educating your children. You know, it's very specific, these areas that the government runs. And what's another one that the government, where the government licensed out the television channels. Okay, so they basically oversaw who could be on the news. They were always in control. And then, of course, you can also look up like CIA operations of how they infiltrated media companies. And basically, and to this day, you can just watch the news and it's all CIA talking points. If you turn on any corporate media, they're just telling you what the CIA wants you to hear. And this was you can look into, I can't remember, was that Mockingbird or Paperclip? It was one of those CIA operations where they infiltrated the media.
Exactly. And they still, still exists today, to this day.
But there's this whole new thing that just happened. And you can see them all freaking out about it. For the first time ever, they don't have a monopoly on it. Now we have this internet thing that came out, and all of a sudden that they don't have a monopoly. And then you can see the tremendous resentment they have that there are shows like Joe Rogan and Jimmy Dore and all of these guys who are like way bigger than the corporate media, and they are not controlled by them. And so this tech censorship is almost like their attempt to come back in and start reigning, you know what I mean, control over how people wield this new thing. I will say, though, I'm pretty optimistic about it, just because I think we have this new weapon that we never had before. And it does seem like, despite their best efforts, it's kind of impossible for them to really shut it down. And you see there's been like these latest rounds of even like trying to cancel people where it's just not working anymore. And so I'm pretty optimistic that I think we are kind of living in a brave new world now. And I mean that in the positive sense, not like the book, which was kind of a downer, but it's a great book though. But we're in this new world now where like the powers that be don't have the same type of control that they used to be able to have. And, you know, even just when I was a teenager, you know, none of this stuff existed. And
I'll give you an example. What was that app, that the first kind of anti-establishment app that came out? Parler, was it called?
Yeah.
And they just nuked it.
Yeah,
it went away and it was gone in about a week when they wanted it gone. And since then, there's been Getter and Rumble and Trump's thing,
Truth Social.
What's Trump's thing? Yeah, Truth Social. And you get the feeling that they can't just nuke those.
And the biggest one of all is Elon Musk buying Twitter. And like kind of completely turning that around from the organization they wanted it to be. And so now, and that's the other thing, is you get like some of these really, you know, really rich people, which I think is also going to be like one of our only hopes, is like wealthy people who are actually good guys who are like, no, I'm going to like put some chips in at fighting against this kind of system. But look, man, the thing that really makes me kind of feel positive about it, and don't get me wrong, they're still bad that they're getting away with funding this proxy war in Ukraine right now. But it would, dude, they literally, and again, for people who are like younger, I don't know if you even understand how crazy. Listen, man, in 2002, they had a year-long propaganda campaign that said that everybody knows that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, and he worked with Osama bin Laden to pull off 9/11, and he's about to pass one of these weapons of mass destruction off to his terrorist buddies, and the next 9/11 is going to be a nuclear attack on America unless we invade unless we invade Iraq. And it was just, I mean, complete lies. It was he's going to give the weapons that he doesn't have to the terrorists that he's not friends with, to then it's all just nonsense. It's just complete lies. They knew they were lying. They completely manipulated the country. And
a lot of them are already here working at the 7-Elevens.
That's right. And it was and it led to a war that killed 1 million people. And that would just be so much harder to pull off today. Like it would be next to impossible, because the thing is, now you have the biggest two people in media right now are Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. The biggest people in media back then were Bill O'Reilly and like maybe Keith Olbermann. Maybe it was a little before Keith Olbermann, but those guys were just puppets of the regime. They were just going to go along with the propaganda.
Was still one of
Koppel,
the biggest guys.
Koppel was still big, but all of those guys were just going to be mouthpieces for the regime. The guys now who are the biggest media people are opposed to the regime, and so it'd be almost impossible to propagandize the American people to that level, because people kind of see through how corrupt government is now, a lot more at least. And so I don't know. I'm optimistic about that. In many ways, we're in a much better situation, even though in some ways we are, things are tough.
Well, listen, Joe Rogan's going to propagandize us on those memory pills. So it's one scam or another. And but let me before I let you go, I want to talk about one other thing, because it's something that I know you know a lot about, and I like I say, I'm really, I have this blog site I do, Stand Up World, and it's a lot of it is about this new world, and I love the Legion of Skanks. I love what you guys have done, and the Skank Fest, which if you don't know it, you think, well, what is that, like an orgy you guys do in Vegas, or what the hell is? Talk a little bit about the Legion of Skanks and what that is, because to me, you guys have created a new wing of stand-up comedy, and let me just say, that's what I love about where stand-up comedy is today. That it's where music always was. There was classical and jazz and this and you guys have really built your own wing, and I just love it.
Yeah, man, Skankfest is coming up. It's only like 3 weeks away, man. I can't wait. It's always just like such a fun time. And no, it's not just a big orgy. I mean, like some people there may have orgies like on their own time, but we don't sponsor the orgies. But you are free to have an orgy like in your hotel room afterward. Make sure voluntary. Everybody has to agree. But yeah, it's actually how Skankfest started, which is such a cool story. It was Louis J. Gomez was all his idea. And then he we all kind of like got behind it. And then Rebecca Trent and Christine Evans, they came in and started running it and really took it to like the next level. But what happened was there was like this woke comedy festival that they were trying to do. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was like some kind in the name of like wokeness. They did this thing where they'd charge comedians to submit for this festival. But if you were a woman or a person of color, they charged you less. And so that was their like, see, look, we're doing this because, the straight white men always get all the advantages. So now if you're not a straight white man, like whatever it was, it would be like $50 if you're a straight white man, but it's only $25 if you're a woman or a person of color or something like that. And they were spinning it as like, we're doing this for like social justice. And Lewis was like, hey, you're not doing this you're ripping off comics. You're charging them to submit for your dumb festival that means nothing anyway. Like what? So all they were doing was getting like a few hundred comics to submit and making money off of these comics and then pretending it was like some social justice thing. So
and ripping some off less.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like there's nothing, this is all just wrong. So Lewis was like, I'm going to start, I think we should start a festival. Then we don't charge anything like for comics. Like we pay the comics who are performing and we don't charge anything for the ones to submit to it. And that was just how it started. And then it just became like, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger every year. And now it's just like this huge thing. But the whole like theory behind Skankfest is that it's just going to be like, it's all like the rawest comics and the best comics all come together. And it's all about the experience, because there's a lot of these festivals. Like I've done Just for Laughs a couple times. I've done like a lot of these like Moon Tower and these different comedy festivals. And what they are is usually like, it's a lot of comics, a lot of great comics on them, but then there's also a lot of industry there, and it ends up being like you're kind of like doing shows and then taking meetings and then trying to like network and try to like, you know what I mean? That's like the whole vibe, which kind of kills how fun the shows are, because half the crowd is usually like agents and managers and TV producers and things like that. That's not really like a fun audience to perform in front of. So Skankfest is like, it's this raw comedy festival. Remove all of the industry. That's not a component of it. You're not performing. It's just the whole thing is about fan experience and the comedian's experience. So the whole thing is a party. Everybody's hanging out. Everybody's meeting each other, taking pictures. Everyone's hanging out. You're hanging out with your audience, and you're hanging out with all your favorite comedians who are your friends. And then it's just kind of like everyone's partying. Everyone's having a great time. And the shows are just, it's the best comedy fans in the world, man. The shows are like electric every year. And it's like
and you
just
do
a
it at different
celebration.
places, don't you?
Yeah, so last year we did it in Vegas for the first time, but we're going back to Vegas. This is actually so we started it in New York, because that's where we all lived at the time. We did it 3 years in a row in New York. Then we did it in Houston, and then last year we did it in Vegas. And each year has been like by far the biggest. Like it's just grown in size every year. And this year in Vegas, man, is going to be this is going to be like
you do it
a whole
downtown
next level.
At downtown Vegas, right?
Yep, on the original strip down there in Vegas, on that seedy that seedy little area there. But it's cool, man. There's an energy there. You know, people have been there. There's an energy to Vegas that's just different than anywhere else in the country.
And think about it though, Dave. I mean, just because I started stand-up comedy in 1977. Okay. I was a kid. I was 17 years old, and just the idea of a comedy festival, a comedy, they didn't have those. They had it for everything else but stand-up comedy.
Right.
They had it for comic books before they had it for comics. And now, and you're right. And then they adjust for laughs, which was just for showcases is what we used to call it.
Right.
It was really, but you basically, guys, you turn it into a music experience, like a music festival is what you've done.
Well, Lewis was like in a band when he was a teenager, and he was like he used to produce music shows and stuff. So I think that always had like a big influence on him, like that's just kind of like it kind of built into like his mentality. And so I think that was part of it too. And we had a band. I can't remember who. There was some band played last year.
Well, don't you have Josh Adam Myers? Doesn't he?
Josh Adam Myers does the goddamn comedy jam.
Yeah,
where it's like comedians go up and sing with him and his full band. It's an awesome show.
Which I think you should have to give the audience some money back for when comedians. This is the part where we all want to be rock stars.
Yes.
So
no, I don't.
Back.
I can't sing, and I know I can't sing, but I do enjoy watching that show. It is a fun show to watch.
Josh goes for it so much.
Yeah, Josh is a good dude. Yeah, and he puts on a hell of a show with the comedy jam.
But you guys, listen, I my hat's off, and I love Big J, and I know Soder's not with you guys anymore, but I met him when I was directing Billions, and he kind of like turned me on to a lot of the new world.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah. No, Soder's not doing the bonfire anymore, but he's with us as much as he's ever been with us. He's not going nowhere.
But and listen, I your podcast, the Legion of Skanks, I was actually on it once, plugging something. It's you guys. It's great. I love what you do, and I'm really happy that you're doing so well with Part of the Problem and your stand-up and everything. And I think you're filling a really good spot in the world. So I'm happy. I'm really glad to have you on this thing,
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. I really enjoyed it. And I really appreciate the kind words, man. Let's do it again sometime.
You're off on tour, right? Are you going to Europe? Did you say? Or?
Yeah, we're going to Europe after first Skank Fest, and then I'm going on a little European tour, doing like Glasgow, London, Amsterdam, and Belfast. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never done stand up in Europe, so this is my first time going out there. So it's I'm excited. That's
awesome. When you're in London, just go into the Top Secret Comedy Club if you're looking for a place to work out.
Okay.
Just jump up. It's a little club in a basement. It's awesome.
Oh, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, I'll check that out.
Okay, cool. All right, man. Thanks again, Dave.
Thank you, brother. Much appreciated.
Best to you. Okay. Episode 39 in the bin. Down in history. Dave Smith, man, I tell you, I got a lot of respect for that guy. I really, he's a young guy too. He's got to be in his 30s, right?
Yeah, let's see.
He's a young guy. He's got there's a lot ahead of him.
40.
He's a kid. And he's got a lot going on up here. So if you get a chance to ever go see him live, I would definitely go see that guy live. You know, I guarantee you there's a lot of fire. Anyway, what's going on next week? We have a really good guest. You're going to love next week. And I'm going to Austin for the film festival. My son's movie is opening there. And then I go to Detroit for Andiamos to open for the great Jeff Ross, my buddy Jeff Ross. And just that's it. Have a great week. Listen to us on Apple, Spotify, standupworld.com, X. You can watch this and, rate, follow, heckle, jeer, whatever you want to do. Just do. Enjoy. Thanks for your support. It means a lot. Have a good day.